Okay.
Councillor Davey, you should be good on live streaming now.
Very good, thank you. Welcome everyone to this special meeting of Finance and Corporate Services Committee. This is our second public input session for the 2021 budget. We have two delegations scheduled for this session. These delegates are familiar with the process, but they do have 5 minutes to make their presentation, after which council can ask questions if necessary. So with that, the first delegate I would like to welcome is Mr. Ian Klugman from Communitech.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a privilege to be able to appear before you here today. There's some slides. I think they're available to you, or?
I would ask the clerk if they got those, they can put them up.
I apologize. I did not receive a presentation for this one, so I can inquire with the deputy clerk quickly to see where it is, but it may need to be circulated after the session.
Okay, no worries whatsoever. So I will just talk. First of all, thank you so much for allowing me to have the opportunity of appearing before you. Of course, the City of Kitchener has been such an important partner of Communitech over the years and helped us achieve collectively significant objectives in our community. So I'm going to take you back a bit. It was 20 some years ago that Communitech was founded with the intent by a group of people to say, how do we ensure the long-term prosperity of our community? Because of course it was the early 90s, and of course there was a significant impact as far as job losses in the community. At the same time, there was of course all this technology thing that was really coming on board fast. And so the group of people said, there's a real opportunity for us to ensure long-term prosperity of our community, jobs for our kids, but we need to be intentional about this, and we need to collaborate and have a collective which helps us solve the problems that we individually are facing as a collective. And so Communitech was founded at that point in time. And much was as the same as it was then. We were focused on how do we help tech companies start, grow, and succeed. And of course, now we've added the word driven, so tech-driven companies start, grow, and succeed. And it's a growing recognition of the fact that that distinction around technology that used to be important is becoming less and less important. And we, of course, over the last 10 years have been able to work with not only great tech companies, start and scale companies, but also large corporates such as Manulife, TED, Royal Canadian Air Force, and increasingly a much broader set of clients where we can add value. And the City of Kitchener has played a significant role throughout this process. It was the $500,000 in 2009 from the City of Kitchener that led us to be able to establish the Communitech Hub and later the Data Hub, and bring in more than $100 million in the initial investment. And since then, literally hundreds of millions of dollars into this strategy because of that initial seed fund. And it was later on that the investment by the City of Kitchener allowed us to double the footprint in downtown Kitchener, going from about 50,000 square feet to about 110, 120,000 square feet in downtown Kitchener, and expand our programs and services to support not just more companies, but launch things like our Fierce Founders programs, where we now have worked with over 240 female-led companies, and to really increase the programs and services around our scale-up companies that we are working with. And then, since then, along the way, along comes COVID, and of course, we're all in March. I think we all remember that day well, March the 12th, when we decided that the world had changed and we needed to respond to it. And there was a few things that we did at Communitech, one of which was really focused on helping companies figure out how to survive new business models, new revenue models, because in the case of many companies, it was just the fact that overnight the taps had been turned off. We focused a lot of our effort on helping the federal and provincial government ensure the right programs and services were in place, the right support networks and services and investments were in place to help them bridge to the other side. We pivoted all of our programs to being virtual, and we saw some interesting things happen. We saw literally Communitech overnight go from being very much a regional organization to attracting the attention from across the country. And so job seekers looking at great jobs in Waterloo Region and in Kitchener went from 700 people to over 1,400 people from across the country, because of course, proximity is optional now, and that creates some significant opportunity for us. We also led a series of task forces working with the CEOs of the hospitals to ensure that we had the right PPEs to support everything from the hospitals to the hospices. We worked to establish the business and economic support team for Waterloo Region, Best WR. We launched something called This Too Shall Pass, which was a charity where we raised over $200,000 for charity organizations in the community. We really made some significant progress as far as working with the healthcare industry in Waterloo Region, and surfacing challenges that they were facing, and then putting those out to companies for them to solve them through a new model. And then, of course, we ran a series of drives helping to surface, the PPEs that not just charities needed and organizations needed, but also small businesses. And so what's next from our perspective? Well, I think that, coming out of this, one of the big opportunities for us is the fact that, proximity is optional. We'll get to a post, we've been thinking a lot about what does a post-COVID economy look like. And one of the big opportunities for us is that we can go after talent globally. And one of the biggest challenges we've had in the past was the fact that we didn't have the talent necessary to scale our companies to the potential they were. But now, with the fact that with this new world in which we live, we can hire people from around the world to work for our great Canadian companies. We've done a lot to help our companies shift from client survival into growth. We see a significant opportunity in the fact that coming out of every economic downturn, high level of unemployment, we've seen a wave of startups. And so we're in the process of preparing for the wave of startups, and also to ensure that the scale-ups that we worked for the last 5 to 10 years in supporting continue that growth that they've had in the past coming out of this. And then the final thing is we've launched something called the Future of X, which is a new collaborative approach where we can bring focus to specific areas of opportunity and challenge together across the community. We launched the Future of Work and Learning about 18 months ago. Now we're launching the Future of Retail, the Future of Cities, Future of Health, Future of Fake News. And this new collaborative model, we think it's actually something that's got significant opportunity for us. It's authentic to who we are as a community. We've often talked about Waterloo Region and the spirit of collaboration. And what we've discovered is that with an intentional strategy, you can actually say, let's stand up an initiative focused on an opportunity, but do so in that true sort of KW fashion around let's figure out how do we gang up together to take on this challenge and to exploit this opportunity for the benefit of the people in this region. So those are our plans. We've launched a number of initiatives that focus on the talent, a huge billboard campaign in Silicon Valley and then in Times Square, going after key and critical talent for us. And we'll continue those efforts to ensure that we're the destination of choice for talent, for companies, and for investment in North America. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly for that presentation. There are 3 people in the queue now with questions. Sorry, I didn't exactly get the order. I believe Councillor Singh was first. Councillor Singh.
Yes, Mr. Chair, my internet's kind of shoddy right now, so I'm going to keep my video off. My apologies.
No problem.
Thank you for coming and presenting. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. And whenever you do, it's always, helps us leave a very optimistic outlook for our region. And it's good to hear all of that. And as we try to endeavor to do what we can at a very small scale municipal perspective, obviously we deal with a lot less resources. I think we are punching well above our weight group by having a very formative and broad economic development strategy and EDIF 2.0. And as we look at the budget into 2021, where do you see opportunities to partner from an organization such as yours, Communitech, with the City of Kitchener that is having a very as I said, a comprehensive economic development strategy that's quite unique and at the same time quite new from a municipality's perspective.
Sorry, I'm on mute. You know, I certainly I applaud the city for EDIF 2.0. I think it's absolutely the right decision to make at the right time, and you know, kudos to you for doing that. There's a couple areas that I think, one of which is around the next wave of startups that we know are coming, and wave by which, you know, we've had over 300 net new companies through our intake process since COVID hit, and we're tracking for that number to be even larger. So that's coming. The work that we do around talent and recruitment, there's a bunch of dimensions there. One of which is we've launched something called Communitech Outpost, which is having a legal entity, an employment entity in 160 countries around the world, so that a company in Kitchener can hire people without risk anywhere in the world, literally, to do either sales or development. And it gives our companies an advantage that no other jurisdiction in the world has. The piece that I think is the opportunity for us is really thinking about, you know, how do we make sure that we're supporting a much broader set of customers that we might have worked with in the past. And so Communitech started working with a bunch of large corporations, TD, Manulife Financial, et cetera, about 8 years ago, because we started seeing that we could add a significant amount of value with the existing programs and services that we have, and the strong ecosystem strategy that we would bring to bear. And I think the other thing that's happened since COVID is, of course, you know, the leadership that we've had around Digital Main Street initiative, where we're going to work with over 5,000 companies in Southern Ontario, and during the course of this initiative, which is up until March 31st. And we've also been spending a lot more time around working with more traditional manufacturing companies, advanced manufacturing companies, everything from scrubs and gowns to ventilators and masks. And I think where we really see the opportunity from a job growth and a job creation perspective is a much broader view of where the opportunity, the economic opportunity exists. And, you know, we're seeing, for example, a huge rise in the number of people who are going to be manufacturing things in and around Kitchener. You know, it's hard to find any kind of industrial land in town right now, because people are turning their attention to saying, we need to build things again. And we want to partner with the City of Kitchener in supporting those companies.
Okay, thank you, Ian. I'll leave you with a challenge, so don't be shy. Please approach us wherever you think there are great opportunities that may exist.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Klugman, for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts and your outlook for Communitech post-pandemic. We are so pleased to see the partnership that we've had with Communitech, with the Civic Innovation Hub, and I just the lab, I should say, in the hub. And I'm just putting a plug out to make sure that we can look to continue that, you know, that collaboration over the years to come. Is that?
Yeah, you know, it has been such a great partnership, and we're actually working on setting up a future of X around cities, and Kitchener will be central to that. Because when we look at things like autonomous vehicles and 5G networks and machine learning, those are all great technologies. But what we want to do is to bring those to bear on what the implications are for a city. What are the opportunities for a city to be able to harness those technologies? And that's another piece of our business over here, but against a very specific subject matter area. And we think cities is the right place. And, you know, given the leadership of Kitchener over the years, everything from, you know, the work that you're doing right now back to, you know, the beginning with the Blue Box and all the other sort of innovative initiatives over the years, you know, it's the right partnership and opportunity for us to be able to work closely with this incredibly innovative city. to figure out, well, what does city mean in a post-COVID economy, and what does workplace mean, and how do we make sure that our companies continue to thrive, that our downtown cores continue to thrive, because it's not going to be the same. It's going to be different. We all know that, but we think there's a tremendous opportunity for us to lead.
Wonderful. All right. Look forward to working with you further.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mayor Vobenovich.
Thanks a lot. Hi there, Ian. Great to see you, and thanks for coming out and providing some perspectives for us, which is fantastic. And I'll echo the comments of the two previous speakers, both Sarah in terms of the Civic Innovation Lab and much we value that partnership and the opportunities that exist there, but also the point that was made by Paul in terms of let's keep the dialogue going and exploring how we can continue to build. I also want to just take this opportunity to thank you, together with Tony and Ian again, for your ongoing leadership during the pandemic with Best WR. I think it speaks to the collaboration that our innovation sector is known for, that Waterloo Region is known for, and it worked well in terms of how we've been able to respond locally to the pandemic. As we go forward and sort of building on the last two questions, though, and particularly, your point around the areas where cities are going to be at the forefront. Do you think that there's sort of more opportunities for us to collaborate as well with not only obviously amongst ourselves and with the other end of the Toronto Waterloo Innovation Corridor, but also with other cities that have Communitech-like organizations and build the collaboration and quite frankly maybe some innovation between different areas across the country or beyond?
Yeah, it's thank you for all that. It's interesting because I think one of the things that is coming out of this, and of course, all of us none of us have certainty as to exactly what post-COVID world's going to look like. But one of the factors that seems to be emerging, which is exciting for us as a community, is this notion that proximity has become optional. And I think that the opportunity for us and for many other small cities across the country is finally to fully be able to exploit the economic potential of a whole bunch of not just small cities, but rural and remote communities in a way that we haven't been able to in the past. Because I mean, quite literally, my generation, my world, and I think probably up until COVID, if you wanted to have meaningful work in a big corporation, you had to move to Toronto, and Toronto was doing extraordinarily well. But of course, there's the growth in our big cities was untenable. And now, of course, what's happened is that people are saying, I really want to live in a small city, a small community, and which creates tremendous opportunity for our growth. To be able to play a much bigger role and to be able to be part of the economic growth of the province and of the country. So I think it's really, the rise of the small city era is upon us, and that's great, because we too can contribute. The piece around the connection to other communities across the country, we're being approached on a regular basis to have conversations with other communities to help them think through their strategies. Of course, in this world where proximity is optional, we're being approached by companies across the country and beyond saying, we really would like to tap into the programs and services associated with Communitech. And we're seeing that translating into a few different things, one of which is I think people are looking for perhaps a different place to live. So talent is thinking about alternatives to what would have traditionally been the places they would have gone. I think companies also are thinking about alternatives, and we're seeing some significant interest from companies in considering Waterloo Region as opposed to other major locations as in the past. And I think the third thing is that, there is a real interest on the part of small cities across the country to say, how do we tap into this opportunity that exists right now? And how do we perhaps work more collaboratively together than we might have in the past? Learn from each other, go to market together. Because at the end of the day, Canada's biggest challenge is the fact that we're a very big country with a very small population. And the more that we can collaborate, that good Waterloo region ethos, the more we can collaborate, the more we can win in market. And so I think that this is an exciting time for us and a big opportunity for this community in working together with other communities.
I think your comment on the rise of the small city era is a really relevant one. A conversation I had not that long ago, because one of the things that as we look at other innovation centers across the country, there really is not another large urban center that has the proximity to rural life that we do as well. And I was just saying, like, if you take, for example, a company like Google, someone can live on the LRT line or in a condo where they walk or cycle to work, and at the same time they prefer to live on a hobby farm. They're no farther than 20-25 minutes away, and you're not going to find that virtually anywhere else across the country. The last question I have is, as you reflect on what you're doing and what Waterloo EDC is doing and what we're doing with Make It Kitchener 2.0, are there any things that you think maybe are missing? Something that, we for whatever reasons haven't really looked at or pursued yet, and in a perfect world we should keep our eye on that as something that we should tackle?
I think that we have an opportunity of being far more competitive globally and going after talent. I think that America is still deeply divided. I'm thrilled that Biden won, but America is still deeply divided. And I think that, America has won in the last, 70 years because they've been the destination of choice for the world's smartest people. And I think that, that mantle is up for grabs. And so I think that we really can be more competitive globally, going after talent and telling the great stories as to what's happening in this community, and being more competitive, because I think people are looking for an alternative to the Valley and to America.
That's a great perspective, and thanks for the campaigns you guys did in New York and the Valley. Those were awesome.
It was fun. It was incredible response that we received from literally, I think it's 40 or 50 million media impressions that we received from that campaign. So,
good job. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you, and thank you so much for coming in tonight. Your remarks are always refreshing, a little exciting. And I have to as well comment on the advertising campaign in the States, which I think was bold and, dare I say, a little cheeky. Love it. That was really great. So thank you for your leadership in being a bold Canadian. I think that's wonderful, and it really does epitomize Waterloo Region, I think. So thank you for that. I was intrigued by your comments about the number of startups that come following a recession, and I think that's a really interesting comment. And we want those startups to come to Waterloo Region, to come to Kitchener. What do you have any idea? Like what types of companies are they going to be, and what do you think that they would need from us as a community?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to need a great place to live and work, and a vibrant, downtown core and things to do, and public transit. And I have to stop and say I'm a big bicycle trail rider, and I'm just so thrilled with the plan that you put in place for a connected bike community across the city. Congratulations. It's fantastic. I live near Victoria Street, and I've been watching the construction of the bike lanes parallel to the roads. It's so fantastic to see. It's those kinds of things. I mean, at the end of the day, we in the knowledge-based economy, the community that can attract and retain the smartest people will win. and it's that simple. And so, you know, I think that's the one thing that we've had our eye on the ball and consistently been able to do in the past. The startups, it's interesting. Many of the most important companies in the world, largest market capitalization, et cetera, were companies that came out of or were birthed during an economic downturn, and we expect no less. We're seeing a ton of medtech companies, and we've got a very strong and intensive medtech strategy in place. We've got a whole bunch of growth coaches working with companies, and of course, the relationships that we have now with the hospital community it's game changing. You know, we now do a call every Thursday at 7:30 in the morning, where we're me and the hospital CEOs, and they're so engaged in wanting to truly affect change. And at the same time, you know, we've got this I think opportunity around really putting to work this idea of challenges. You know, there's a great example of when we met with the chief scientist, the office of the chief scientist in Israel, and I said, you know, how is it that Israel is so capable of doing these remarkable things? And he said, well, we use challenges. And one example that he gave was, he said, you know, we put out the challenge to the country to say we need to be 100% domestically reliant on for potable water. So how do we do that? And of course, the community rose the challenge, and now they literally don't ever worry if it rains again in that country, because they can produce all of their own potable water for agriculture and for the people. And I think it's that challenge opportunity. Instead of trying to fuss about procurement, I think the more we can put out, you know, here's the problem we're trying to solve, and if you can solve this problem, there's a purchase order at the end of the day. That kind of approach, I think, would be powerful and really spur a lot of interest from the community. We've seen it. Federal government has issued challenges during the pandemic, provincial government, et cetera. And I think the more we can start thinking about, let's surface the problems that we're facing as a government or as a society. Let's not try and solve them ourselves. Let's put them out to the great innovators and entrepreneurs, and they will solve them with a purchase order at the end of the day. That I think would be huge. And then the final thing is, you know, the more that we can, you know, the more that we can be do to support this next wave of startups as a community, because it's not any one organization that's going to be successful. I think that, you know, the city has always been such a great partner, lending its weight, thinking about the challenges that companies are facing, trying to spur, you know, a support for them in being downtown. So you know, just being responsive, I think, probably is what we're going to have to be, because we don't know what to expect. So we're going to have to skate with our heads up at this point in time.
Love it. That's a great answer, and maybe that's from what Councillor Marsh was asking about with the Civic Lab.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe that's a great way of putting out some challenges as well. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Councillor Ioannidis.
Hi, Ian. How are you?
I'm well.
That's good. Of course, without saying, it's you know, thank you for everything that you and your organization does for our communities as a whole. It's always great to see you here and appreciate all the wisdom that you bestow on us, which is great. So the question that I have is, and this is something that's been a challenge that I think the city has been working on for quite some time now, and now with some of the challenges with the pandemic and everything. How do you see? And I know you probably mentioned some of the answers in some of your comments to the other councillors for other various questions. How do you see our downtown developing, and how do you see ways that we could do to support our downtown, in particular, maybe the retail industry and everything else? Because, you know, what I'm seeing is a lot of certain shops that are sort of the same type of business that are opening up everywhere, and it's just not downtown, but it's through all the retail. So I wonder if you have any insight into how the retail will form in the future.
Gosh, it's a really big question. I think that one of the things that we've seen come out of this pandemic is the fact that e-commerce has become a reality. We've gone virtual. We've got hundreds and hundreds of people over the age of 70, 80 years old who are showing up virtually for church every week, who are buying things online. And so I think that really the opportunity for us is that is to help our companies, our retailers, figure out how do they have that hybrid model, that mixed model between e-commerce and in-person, foot traffic. One of my favorite stores where I spend way too much money, Relish Cooking Store, right on Victoria Street next to, and I mean they're going gangbusters right now. And a big part of that is just being able to figure out and helping your companies figure out that balance between having a really competitive digital strategy, lead gen, digital marketing, a seamless e-commerce experience at the same time as doing the real time. The opportunity is in the fact that the sort of big boxes and the Amazons of the world are going to consistently deliver a very generic product, and really what is different about local homegrown type of offerings is that they are unique and distinctive. And the more we can help people be successful with those different kinds of offerings, with those different kinds of experiences, and using technology to take it out to the world, the more likelihood of their success will be. And I think that's one of the really exciting things that we're doing around Digital Main Street right now, is that it's not just about survival, it's about, imagine if this is an opportunity for significant growth that you couldn't realize with just foot traffic.
Okay. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
Okay, Ian, it's we certainly got our money's worth out of you today. You're lucky there's only 2 delegations, as actually we're probably more lucky there's only 2 delegations. But just so you know, we actually did receive your presentation, so you do have a copy of that. It looks great, and thank you very kindly for all the work you do and for making the time today.
Well, thank you for having me on again today. I always love spending time with this group, and thank you for your leadership throughout this incredible, this challenging time. And I again applaud you for a lot of the big initiatives, the bike paths and the bike system, EDIF 2.0. You're doing good work, and it's this kind of leadership that we need that will ensure our success coming out of COVID. So thank you again.
Really appreciate that. Have a good night. So next is already here, Tony Lamantia from the Waterloo EDC. When you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. So I'm going to share the screen. Oh, someone else is sharing the screen. Okay. So I would, if possible, can I drive? Because I'm going to take a cue from George Martin when he said, "Please don't bore us, start with the chorus." So maybe just go right to, I don't think I can drive him here. Go to slide 8, whoever's, no, back. The one that says,
back to,
the one that says Kitchener Shines. Okay. So again, thank you for the opportunity to update the council, and I don't want to go over the story that the year has been. Like, we've been at this for 42 weeks. Just a reminder how strong the year started. Right, we were literally the fastest growing CMA in Canada, record low unemployment. Literally a couple of weeks after the Google announcement, for its major expansion in Kitchener, the pandemic hits, major exogenous shock, and the rest, as they say, is history. But I thought that rather than covering the same ground that I did, and my chair did for AGM and public information meeting, I would just really focus on kind of the Kitchener contribution to our results. So, at a high level, 2020 has been, really shocking because we actually did better than 2019, and that was not expected, not at all. Certainly by May, I had told my board that with only 2 deals closed and about 12 million in investment, that we knew there were a few in the pipeline like Z Modular that would get us closer to the target, but we knew we wouldn't hit it. But then in pivoting to supply chain localization and in pivoting to supporting where the local demand was, and in getting leads from the role as chair of the business and economic support team, fast forward to the end of October, we actually surpassed our 2019 targets. So the key message for council is that focusing on where the local demand was proved to be very, very good for business. And in particular, there are two of the Kitchener investments that really kind of bring the collaboration blueprint to life. The first is a company called Odyssey Interactive. And this is a brand new gaming studio coming out of Los Angeles, where a Waterloo Region resident, fresh off great success from being part of Riot Games in Los Angeles, received a very large check to start a gaming studio, and decided that he wanted to do that in Canada, and he convinced 2 U.S. co-founders that would be a great place to do it, and he located in Kitchener at the Communitech Hub. And the role that my organization played was essentially to get work permits through the Global Skills Program. We're a referral partner to the 2 U.S. co-founders. Help with the site search while the company was looking at a place to locate, and we're involved in the initial pitch to both the federal and local teams that were involved. So the federal government and also to our customs and immigration partners at the border where the permits were issued. So that actually came together rather quickly, and it's a testimony to the ecosystem and the fact that we already had companies like EA Sports and Google Stadia not actually doing production, but actually involved in the back end. So we had the makings of a broader ecosystem, and this company basically made the decision to locate on that basis. Another great example is Z Modular. This is a lead that came to us a while ago from Derek Henderson and one of my board members, where they were looking at a major new plant expansion. Z Modular is a leader in modular home manufacturing construction components, and literally after we were given the opportunity to submit a targeted pitch, we got actively involved working with the ECDEV team at the City of Kitchener, in particular with Brian Bennett. And lo and behold, after about 3 months, we learned that Kitchener was going to be the successful location and winning site in Canada. And very quickly we learned that other members of the Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge advanced manufacturing ecosystems could start to partner with Z Modular on a range of initiatives. They actually even got involved working with companies like TrustCore and others in supporting the PPE drive. And so I would say that, more than most, what we found this year was kind of that the collaboration blueprint is brought to life when you actually focus on specific opportunities. The pipeline continues to grow. When I think about where we're headed, Ian Klugman talked about opportunities in medtech, and I think it aligns very nicely with the Life Sciences Innovation Center that the Kitchener Council recently approved, partnership with the University of Waterloo, and very soon, hopefully, with the federal and provincial governments as well. Our role there will be to bring anchor investors and anchor partners to that center, and we're already filling the pipeline with significant interest on the part of companies who view this as as where the puck is going to go as far as the convergence of areas like biomedical engineering, advanced manufacturing, and we're seeing quite an opportunity to be a magnet, not just for capital, but for talent. supported by all of the things that the community is able to provide, from startup support to scale up support to programs, and essentially being a willing host and a welcoming host community for talent. So those are just a couple of examples where we have seen the collaboration blueprint come to life, and the collaboration with Kitchener has been very strong. Councillor Davey, if you could go to maybe the next slide where we're actually showing the actually further down where we have the results over 5 years. Yeah, that's very helpful. So when I think about kind of 5 years in the role, and really kind of going from 2016, where essentially we bootstrapped it with support from the board, we were able to put in payroll systems and IT and start kind of ramping up the organization. We've been able to close over this 5-year period 56 investments valued at over $1 billion, significant job growth. Interesting that the 25 were local expansions. And if you actually look at the breakdown, you can see how prominent, and it shouldn't be a surprise, but after a while, this is kind of what I want to remind council, that 4 or 5 years ago when I started, I would be given a hard time by each council looking at their own kind of city and saying, well, why are we only at this percent? And, kind of where do you see it going forward? And my expectation was that after 5 years, you would actually start to see not just an evening, but a better reflection of the strength of each of the cities in the township. So you've seen that play out rather neatly over the last 5 years. And so, when I look ahead, and I'll bring this to a close and open it up for questions. Councillor, if you could go to maybe the penultimate slide where we're thinking about the future. No further, I think it's just the second last one. Yeah, right there. Obviously, we're going to be stuck in this mud for a while. And by that, I mean, if foreign direct investment has declined by about 50% this year, and that's the latest projected stat from OECD, the importance of supply chain localization and ensuring that our auto parts manufacturers are able to overcome any supply disruptions to ensure that we don't face the same PPE challenges that we did this year. I heard the conversation about challenges. Well, when you think about where we started with PPE manufacturing in the region in March and where we are today, we essentially went from very little capacity to within 42 weeks being a PPE powerhouse. Literally, companies like Mitchell Plastics, Woodbridge Foam, Inksmith, Eclipse Automation, Primed. I mean, that's an example of a nationwide search that the country's leader in acute care took to locate their first manufacturing of PPE in Canada, and they ended up choosing Cambridge. So our ability to pivot and focus on helping local companies scale while not losing sight of the core business, attracting capital, attracting talent, and more importantly, continuing to use the investments that we've made in digitization. I mean, those are starting to bear significant fruit. We as an organization in 2018 and 19 started to invest heavily in a digital first strategy, and that really paid dividends in the contact-free economy of 2020. I heard the conversation about small cities and their strength. We started a Waterloo Region versus Pittsburgh, Waterloo Region versus Austin, kind of head-to-head comparative campaign, and I can share with this council that literally 2 weeks ago, a major multinational that has an operation in Plymouth, Michigan, reached out over LinkedIn because they reacted to the Waterloo Region versus Detroit piece, and this is a Europe-based multinational that already has a location, and essentially a one-on-one conversation with the CEO, the North American CEO, led to a virtual fam tour, a presentation at their North American board, and a real likelihood that they are actually going to begin some not just R&D, but moving of major global talent into a new Canadian region. And I'm quite confident that's going to be Waterloo Region. So that's just an example of a no-touch, kind of no kind of physical contact, but a digital-first strategy based on comparative strengths that led to a qualified lead. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And our role in supporting shovel-ready sites, in supporting talent, and ensuring that that there is more digitization on the part of companies will assist with the mandate that we have going forward. So, my main message really is one of thank you to this council for the ongoing partnership. I think there's very exciting opportunities ahead, and we're quite lucky that the assets themselves don't need a lot of kind of hyped marketing. Really, it's there's all kinds of third-party validation, and it's made the role of my team, using digital methods, it's made it a lot easier. At the end of the day, there are so many companies and so many success stories to point to that it's made the need for some traditional investment marketing less apparent. So on that basis, I'll leave it there and open it up to questions from the council.
Thank you, Mr. Levens. Yeah, I did let you go quite a bit over time, but we only had 2 delegations, so I thought we would benefit from it. Thank you for that. First is Councillor Ioannidis.
Thanks, Chair Davey. Thanks, Tony, for coming in and for your presentation and for everything that you do too for the community. It's always great to hear from you as well. And I too, I was noticing your campaign, and I've liked it so many times on Twitter. I don't know, my fingers hurt, but anyways, I thought that was a really great program, and I'm glad to hear that it's been a success so far. So that's good. Kudos to you and your team. I have a few questions. So one of the things that I've seen that we have been able to do here in Waterloo Region, in particular with your organization and the help, was the refocus of supply chain. I'm wondering, and that's with with PPE, but to me, I think there may be even a greater opportunity to refocus supply chain for many other things, not just for PPE. And wonder if that's a focus that you guys are looking at, or you're just too busy with everything else, you don't have time.
No, actually, thanks for that question, Councillor Ioannidis. It's when I talk about supply chain localization, you could say in 2020 it was PPP focused, but it's exactly what you said. It's a lot broader than that. So a good example is, we have manufacturers like Toyota that rely on robots that sometimes are coming in from Michigan, right? And companies are located there for no other reason than that's where one of their kind of original partners were set up. But they do so much business in Waterloo Region and are part of a just-in-time production supply chain that we're actually working with the manufacturer to relocate some of these companies in Waterloo Region so they're actually closer. And there are always risks with not just trade, but in a situation like we've had this year with the COVID pandemic, when you're in a just-in-time manufacturing environment, period. When there is a disruption at the border, it can actually impact, it can actually just shutter production, right? And so whether it's med tech, whether we're talking about agri-food industry or automotive parts manufacturing, supply chain localization that's a very important thing. And we want to take advantage of USMCA or NAFTA 2.0, whatever you want to call it, to ensure that that the strengths that exist from a trade standpoint are actually exploited, so that we can continue to drive more investment in Southwestern Ontario, Waterloo Region, in a broad range of new areas. Like, we've been very active in the hybrid electric EV battery plant search for Southwestern Ontario. That's a fairly well-known initiative, and with the mandate, there's opportunities for each of the components, ranging from the cells to the actual assembly. So the short answer is yes. It's not just PPE. It's a range of key components.
Okay. And the reason why I asked that question is because when COVID came, it really became apparent to that I saw that a lot of the medications that we get were so totally sourced out of China. And to me, that just really rattled me. Like, it's hard to believe that we're relying solely on medications directly from China. So anyways, I'm glad that that will be somewhat of, that's a good focus. My next question is regarding with the Waterloo Region Arts, and I know we have been, like, as a city and I know as a region, we're always looking at the arts and stuff. Do you see, and I know we've talked about this before, but a big need for some form of I guess a studio per se, maybe a gaming studio, maybe a virtual reality studio or anything like that? Like, do you see that? Do you have that on your radar as well at all?
Well, let's put it this way. When I was at the province, so I left the private sector in 2009. I was at the province for 6 years. One of the things that we were able to do was to drive Ubisoft's creative studio production in Toronto. We did that with a program with Sheridan College, right? And that has, that's really blossomed into thousands of individuals, from kind of senior creative types to collaborations with movie studios, like, the Ubisoft and the whole, I'm not a big gamer, but the whole Assassin's Creed movie and, game line, a lot of that work was driven from Toronto and Montreal. So, we have, very quietly, the Kitchener Google team started to develop not just the Chrome streaming technology, but the back end to Stadia. So for those counselors who might not be aware, but that is Google's major global platform for games. And it allows gamers to essentially play games without actually having to have a controller. But all the back end, like, if you think about it, the plumbing and the electrical was all done in Kitchener, right? And so by adding Odyssey Interactive, which is our first real creative studio, I think there's an opportunity for us to, using the same metaphor, go beyond the electrical and the plumbing and actually get in some interior decorators and kind of designers, so that we can actually move up the value chain and maybe develop programs with organizations like Conestoga College, right? Because you don't need to be a data scientist or a software engineer or a mechatronic engineer. There are a lot of college programs that have been handmade and designed for young people and actually older people who've wanted to retrain because they've always had a passion for games. So I think we're starting to see the building blocks of that, with companies making a decision to be part of that ecosystem. But there's a ways to go, and it's not like you can kind of snap your fingers and suddenly you've got a kind of globally significant cluster, right? Councillor Ioannidis, you need to grow incrementally, but I think all the ingredients are here, and it just requires more validation with investment and growth, and and maybe Stadia themselves, the creative folks in Mountain View, can make an investment in the region. Those are all they're all on the table, right? Increasingly, Waterloo Region and Kitchener in particular for Google is not just about kind of engineering and kind of back end technology. We're getting into product management. We're getting into design. And I think as we move up the value chain, the opportunities to do that are going to be there for us.
Okay.
Councillor Ioannidis, if you have further questions, I'm going to have to ask you to queue back in. It's been
all right. I'll queue back in.
Well over. Thank you, Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you. And Tony, thank you so much for being here tonight. your presentation, again, it's so exciting to see the deals that you're to bring companies to this community is pretty incredible. And the fact that your team was able to blow out of the water this year what you were hoping to be able to close, it's pretty amazing in a pandemic. And to have you in here tonight together, I always say you two are like the 1-2 economic powerhouse and punch that any community would love to have. So it really is great. And thank you for your report. I did pull a couple of things out of it that I wanted to ask you about in terms of ways that perhaps the city can be helping you, and maybe in particular our economic development team. But you were talking about stronger inbound and outbound marketing campaigns, and as well some issues around job sites challenges. And perhaps they're two very different things, but maybe if you want to comment on those and maybe some ways that we can be helping you as well.
So yeah, the inbound marketing and outbound marketing have morphed dramatically this year because it's a virtual approach that we've taken. So we have done 360 virtual tours for all of the ecosystem assets. So there, in Waterloo Region we have 21. So think about getting a tour of Communitech or the School of Pharmacy or the Accelerator Center virtually, and being able to look at your phone and kind of flip it around so you could see what's happening on different floors. So we had those ready to go earlier this year. I think going forward, our ability to continue to market that way is going to be important. But at the end of the day, we always rely very closely on, we're a tenant at Communitech. We've been there now for 2 years. So we sublease from the Communitech folks. That continues to be center ice for the ecosystem in Waterloo Region, right? Continuing with the hockey metaphor. So that is one place where you can actually show the hub and actually sort of take some investors or potential talent candidates a walk around the local hub. Certainly, we did something like that recently with an introduction to the folks at UW Velocity for a med tech company that was coming out of Toronto, and quite blown away actually by the space. And I'll share anecdotally, kind of when they looked at the housing and the cost structure and the community, they were like, you could see them convincing the decision maker, like, let's hurry up. Could we park there right now? Like, you know what I mean? It was quite something to see. So, and that's always in partnership with City Active. Like, when we build the collaboration blueprint, you have to make sure that at some point there's a handoff, because where our work ends, the aftercare totally resides with the City of Kitchener ECDEV team, right? Whether it's permitting or just regulatory issues, that's essentially where the handoff is really important. So, and on job sites challenge, we're really just talking about shovel-ready sites that we can market for large projects. And so we keep an inventory of signature sites. We refresh those every quarter by working with Kitchener, Cambridge, Waterloo, and the township ECDEV staff. In other words, they tell us, please market these sites. These are our top 2 or 3 to global investors. And so that's going to continue.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Rabinovich.
Thanks a lot. Hi, Tony. Great to have you here as well. And I too want to echo some of the comments that have been made. First, to thank you again for your leadership together with the two Ians on the north side of the 401 with respect to Best WR, as well as Greg in Cambridge. And I think we had the powerhouse team to help guide us from a business perspective, and that's certainly appreciated. But secondly, and your slides demonstrate not only all of the achievements that have been realized this year, but over the last 5 years. And I really wanted to congratulate you and your team for your leadership, and quite frankly, for knocking it out of the ballpark. you know, when I think back to when we were starting Waterloo EDC, there was a lot of question. There was a lot of trust that was being developed amongst the 7 lower tier municipalities that had primary responsibility together with the region for economic development. And it really was tremendous to see how all of that came together and the successes that have been achieved during that time frame. I guess my one question for you as we look going forward, and it'll be a similar one to the last question I'd asked Ian, and I think you were on the line listening as well. But what are the sort of things that you think we need to really sort of keep an eye on the ball on going forward, our vulnerabilities, I guess, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I have a couple of board members who, God bless them, all, you know, they always see dark clouds on the horizon, and that's actually a good thing. Like, you actually need that skill set, and so one of the things that I think cuts both ways, and we really haven't talked about, is, you know, this business about proximity is optional, right? Well, just think about the forex differential, you know, between the Canadian dollar and the US dollar, and, you know, companies realizing that, you know, maybe we don't need to have an office in San Francisco or Redwood City because of the cost structure. We can hire talent remotely and maybe poach them from Waterloo Region companies, and they can work from home, and we'll pay them, you know, 150 US, which translates to about, you know, 210 Canadian, and Bob's your uncle. I mean, that's actually a counter. When you talk about things to worry about, we're going to have to figure out a way to encourage individuals to, I don't want to say, you know, kind of make discerning choices about who they work for, where they live, but also the community that they ultimately want to support, right? And I think so. The war for talent isn't a one-way street. There's going to be some ongoing tension, and so I would just caution, you know, anyone who thinks that, you know, kind of this notion that a contact-free economy will automatically be good for Kitchener or for Waterloo Region. Not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. So case in point, in 1998, I was hired by Digital Persona to build out their Canadian office. And, you know, the starting salary just kind of blew my socks off because it was US dollars. And I was very happy to basically help that company grow, right, until we could hand it off and actually have an official presence. And you know, I was with that company for about 6 years. But all that just to say that the war on talent means that we have to see all sides, you know, kind of where our strengths are, but where the challenges are. And so one of the things that we're not doing as much, quite honestly, this business about kind of marketing our lower costs. You know, in a knowledge-based economy, unless it's a capital project, it's really about the talent. So, you know, the days of marketing cheap talent, in my view, are done. It's really about, if you want the best talent, you're going to have to pay, and you're going to have to pay for peace of mind. And if you're interested in coming to Waterloo Region because the talent is cheap, you're in the wrong place, because it's about great talent, not cheap talent. And actually, case in point is companies are always surprised that the talent is more expensive than they thought it would be, because they have somehow this notion that not that we're, you know, this is a hillbilly jurisdiction, but that basically it's really low cost, right? And so we don't market that way anymore. It's really about quality of talent and value for money and peace of mind. So I mean, that's one thing that I think we're going to have to watch, this war on talent, and also making sure that we're good corporate citizens, that we play by honorable rules and not try to kind of, you know, I sit on a national group of 12 CEOs, and lately there have been some shenanigans with some cities trying to scoop talent, poach talent from other cities, and And so we try to call that out because we're stronger together. We don't, we have to know who our friends are and who our real competitors are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, still from south of the border, not from each other in Canada.
Absolutely.
So last quick question, so that neither you nor I get cut off by the chair. Tony, in terms of Waterloo EDC, what do you need from us to support you to continue to be successful, you and your team?
You know what? Obviously the continued funding support with the other seven municipal partners has allowed us to develop partnerships with the federal and provincial governments. And so we're 2 years into a 5-year agreement, which is fantastic. I just think the continued collaboration on marketing and the fact that, Corey and Brian have monthly check-ins with us. We share pipeline information. I think, and obviously access to the civic leadership. Everybody who sits on this council and in the public service, ranging from Dan to all of the senior team, understand that when we do a handoff to the city, that the aftercare is actually in many ways more important than the work we do, right? Because after the company decides to land, it's those first few weeks and months where you build confidence with a community. And that really, that resides with not just elected officials, but the City of Kitchener staff. And that's why that relationship, I would just urge, the public service, municipal employees to continue to really be client focused, business friendly, because that's something we shouldn't take for granted.
Great. Thanks a million, Tony, and keep up the good work.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Tony, I think you made a good point that just post-pandemic, obviously companies don't necessarily need to look at trying to shift their operations where talent exists. They can easily remotely access that talent. And from the point that your perspective as a mandate for your organization, that definitely makes it harder for you. May not necessarily be immediate a problem for a municipality per se, because at the end of the day, our citizens are employed. That essentially is very important to us. The fact that there are job opportunities, be it local or be it broad. If we can retain them here, retain the talent here, and they're employable, and they can, of course, that helps to our economic fabric of our city and our region. But it's important for us to build an ecosystem of business here locally as well. And with this new challenge, I think government has an important role to play. And when I say government, I'm talking about provincial and federal policies. So my question to you is, do you think as a municipality, such as ours, or even the municipalities in this region, are they doing enough in their government relations role to ensure that issues related to a CMA area like ours is recognized, that we need to do more to attract business here now, where talent before was enough, but that's no longer the case?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is I think so. And the reason is that there is, and now I'm not sure if it's just the strength of the personal relationships that municipal elected officials have built with federal and provincial partners, or, Ian has with Communitech, or my own relationships with the provincial and federal counterparts. But there's very much a what does Waterloo think approach to policy. And we, as just in terms of the Best Waterloo, the business and economic support team, which I chair, we did 6 advocacy letters in about 5 weeks early on. And we got immediate responses from the federal and provincial governments, right? While the implementation wasn't always perfect in terms of the programming, they were there. Literally, when I send an email to a provincial or federal deputy or minister, it gets acknowledged and returned like sometimes within minutes. And so they care about what Waterloo Region thinks, and in terms of our own recommendations, maybe because of the way we've mobilized, we are a force. In fact, I get the national view as well, right? Because I sit on CCCA, and my counterparts in Calgary or even in Vancouver, I mean, I've often heard, them complaining out loud that, if I have to hear one more stupid thing about Waterloo Region, I'm going to kill somebody, right? Just because their cities are, in their view, considerably bigger and more important, right? So I think we're doing a good job. The last quick thing I'll say is, it can't just be an employment strategy, right? I mean, it's got to be strategic. It's got to be a headquarters strategy. It's got to be an intellectual property strategy. So it's not just about jobs for their own sake, right? We actually want the headquarters. We want the intellectual property, and we've changed our pitch in the last couple of years to go for it all. Really, to go for the headquarters, the global headquarters. To be located in Waterloo Region, as opposed to just a research or a sales office or just having the jobs here. It has to be more than that. So I'll just leave it there.
No, thank you, Tony. I think you touched on it, and I'm in agreement with your last point. It's good that we do have good relations with other orders of government. That you get those email replies as quick as you need them to be. But that's why I was trying to inquire, can the cities do more to broaden that government relations aspect? So thank you for your answer.
That's all the questions, Tony, except for my own. Just one quick one. I was going to ask Ian, but I'll put it to you because I'm not really sure where it lies. But one of the deficits of seeing economic development, especially in some of the changes we're seeing locally, is the content creators. We've had some great developments like Odyssey Interactive coming is great, and obviously we've had EA for a while, and Stadia, even though they're not a developer, they're a platform. I think there's a real need, and I've heard it even going back as far back as Christie Digital back when years ago. Is that so? Again, like the artists, the musicians, these people, is that more in Waterloo EDC's wheelhouse, or is that more in Communitech's wheelhouse? Like is there anyone that's looking for that sort of talent attraction?
Yeah, you know what, that's a tough one, Councillor Davey. You're asking me who the lead horse is, right? Or who's the lead wolf in the wolf pack who gets up every day kind of focused on that. And, talent is really, the talent attraction initiatives, primarily Communitech, but obviously when we're trying to build out a major new facility for a multinational, right? We always try to convince hire a local leader that we help identify. We've done that in a number of cases so that individual can build out a local team, right? So we're part of the solution, right? But I'd be exaggerating if I said that's like we get up every day with the prime responsibility to kind of get the creative class and into the region. We play a role there, but we're certainly not. We don't consider ourselves the lead. But like a lot of important issues, whether it's ranging from immigration to aftercare to supporting arts and culture. It's there are a number of organizations involved and people involved, right? So
okay, yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I guess I see it as an opportunity, and the idea that we have we have fantastic engineers, but farming out the creativity, typically south of the border, is something I think that we can work on going forward. But before I move on to the final person, actually, Councillor Marsh is in the queue to say, I also wanted to add that I think Waterloo EDC is doing a fantastic job, and the wins that you're achieving are not going unnoticed. So thank you for that, Councillor Marsh.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to piggyback on what you were asking about there, Chair Davey, because I want to make sure that the Waterloo EDC is in touch with our film, music, and interactive media office and at least that's one role that we're trying to play in helping those content creators that are here already in Waterloo Region or who may find a home here to get connected in with the innovation that's happening. Are you already in touch with Bob Egan, Tony?
I'm not, but I know that through the ECDF team in Kitchener, you know, there was an entire, like there was a mobilization on trying to bring that part of the EDF 2.0 to life. And so, you know, it's something that we actually, we could do a much better job on. You know, it's certainly important for us to work together on targeting new investors and new opportunities for the region that bring arts and culture to life. It's going to be you know, critically important in the years ahead for sure.
Yeah, well, it looks like we've got one more thing on the list for the next in the coming weeks ahead to make some connections. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Tony. That's all the questions for you. And that concludes the public input session. I'm not going to lie, I told my daughter I thought we'd be about 20 minutes, but that's okay. We got a great education on all things economic development related, and that's great. So we'll see everyone at council. Thank you.
Thank you. And then guys, just at the end of council tonight, if council can just stay on for a couple minutes,